happens when you care too much, in a system that punishes compassion. Teddy Bridgewater didn't return to South Florida to chase clout, cash in on his name, or relive old glory. He came back for something deeper, something real. He walked away from an NFL career and straight into one of Miami's most forgotten high school football programs. No cameras, no PR rollout, just one man showing up where he was needed most. And what he built was nothing short of remarkable. He turned a struggling team into state champions, not with boosters, not with recruiters, with belief, with presence, with his own time and his own money. But instead of praise, they handed him a suspension. Why? Because he paid for a kid's ride to practice when his mom couldn't. Because he funded therapy when a player got injured. Because he bought food, painted the field, and refused to let poverty write these kids off. Now, ask yourself, when brands are throwing millions at teenage athletes, when college visits come with private jets and endorsement deals, why is this man being punished for helping? This wasn't a scandal, it was a message: stay in your lane. But Teddy never stayed in anyone's lane. He built his own and brought his community with him. So what really happened behind the scenes? Who pushed for his suspension? And why? Because when you break the cycle, some people don't celebrate. They panic. Let's get into it. Teddy Bridgewater had every reason to walk away from football on his own terms. After nearly a decade in the NFL, Vikings, Saints, Panthers, Broncos, Dolphins, he had the money, the legacy, and the respect. He didn't owe the game anything. He could have done what so many ex-players do: slide into broadcasting, start a business, post throwback highlights on Instagram. But that's not Teddy. Miami Northwestern High School wasn't just his alma mater. It was his foundation, the place that gave a skinny kid from Liberty City a shot at something bigger. But when he returned, it wasn't for photo ops or pep rallies. He wasn't there to be a face on a mural. He came to coach, to rebuild, to matter. At the time, the team was on life support. Losing seasons, low morale, empty stands. The spark that once made Northwestern legendary had all but disappeared. Most people saw a broken program. Teddy saw kids just like him, raw, hungry, overlooked. And instead of preaching from a pedestal, he rolled up his sleeves. He didn't talk about what the NFL taught him. He showed up every single day to prove those kids deserved the same shot he got. Not with promises, with presence. No headlines, no ego. Just Teddy, back home, doing what no one expected. Leading. Not because he had to, but because someone had to. By the time Teddy Bridgewater walked through the gates of Miami Northwestern, the program was barely recognizable. Once a powerhouse in Florida high school football, the Bulls had slipped into mediocrity. 4 wins, 6 losses. The kind of season that doesn't just break records, it breaks spirits. The locker room felt more like a waiting room. The players weren't lazy. They were lost. Tired of losing. Tired of being ignored. Tired of promises that never came true. And in a community where football is more than a game, where it's a lifeline, those empty Friday nights hit hard. The school had no money. Equipment was outdated. Field paint was inconsistent. Some kids couldn't even get to practice without begging for rides. Coaches came and went, treating the job like a stepping stone. The heart was gone. The pride was gone. And then Teddy showed up. Not to give speeches, not to bring NFL glamour. He showed up with clipboards, drills, practices, and visits. And his own 2 hands. He knew what the school was missing because he had lived it. He was that kid once, trying to dodge trouble, chasing a dream no one believed in. So he rebuilt everything from the inside out. Not just the playbook, but the culture. Discipline, accountability, love. He brought structure where there was chaos and belief where there was doubt. And the kids responded, fast. But what came next wasn't just a comeback. It was something nobody saw coming. What Teddy Bridgewater built at Miami Northwestern didn't look like a miracle. It looked like hard work, sweat-soaked practices, late-night film sessions, and a coach who never clocked out. He didn't bring hype, he brought hope. And the result? One of the most stunning turnarounds in Florida high school football history. The same team that had gone 4-6 just a year earlier became a dominant force. They tore through the brutal 6A division like they had something to prove. Because they did. Every win wasn't just a stat, it was a statement. That belief matters. That structure matters. That someone finally cared enough to lead the right way. They didn't have flashy sponsors or 5-star recruits. They had mismatched cleats, borrowed gear, and a coach who sometimes paid out of pocket just to keep things moving. And still, they became champions. Under Friday night lights, those boys ran like their lives depended on it. Because for some of them, it did. And every touchdown, every stop, every celebration echoed louder than the scoreboard. It was proof that they belonged. Teddy wasn't just coaching football, he was rewriting futures. And when they hoisted that state championship trophy, it wasn't about rings. It was about redemption. For the team, for the school, and for a community that had been written off too many times. But when you start winning without playing by their rules, someone always wants to know how. It didn't take long for the whispers to start. At first, it was quiet. Just murmurs about how Teddy turned a broken team into state champions overnight. But success has a price. And in high school football, when you win too fast without the usual politics, people don't ask what you did right. They start digging for what you did wrong. And that's exactly what they did. They didn't find scandals, no pay-to-play schemes, no illegal recruiting pipeline. What they found? A coach who paid out of pocket to get kids to practice. Who funded rehab for injured players? Who bought food, uniforms, field paint, basic things the school couldn't or wouldn't provide? And the wildest part? Teddy self-reported most of it. He wasn't sneaking around. He didn't try to cover his tracks. He told them straight up, "I helped my kids because no one else would." But in the eyes of the system, compassion became a technical foul. They called it a violation. Improper benefits, they said, as if buying a $20 Uber for a kid with no ride was some sinister plot to gain an edge. It wasn't a secret. It wasn't shady. It was human. Yet somehow, helping became the headline. And behind closed doors, someone decided enough was enough. Not because he cheated, but because he didn't wait for permission. And just like that, the punishment came down. But in today's NIL era, where teenagers drive sponsored sports cars, what Teddy did suddenly felt revolutionary. If Teddy Bridgewater had handed those kids a Nike contract instead of a ride to practice, no one would have blinked. That's the twisted reality of the NIL era. Right now, high school athletes are signing sponsorships before they've taken a college class. Brands are delivering free meals to locker rooms. Cleats are custom. Highlight tapes look like music videos, and recruiting trips include private drivers and luxury hotels. It's all fair game, so long as the money flows from corporations and not from someone who actually cares. But Teddy, he bought groceries, paid for Ubers, funded physical therapy when a kid got hurt and had nowhere else to go. He used his own money to make sure kids showed up, stayed healthy, and felt like they mattered. And for that, he got suspended. It's not just hypocritical, it's insulting, because the system doesn't care if a national fast food chain sponsors a 17-year-old. But it does care when a black coach from the community reaches into his wallet for the right reasons. When he gives without branding it. When he helps without asking. That's not a violation of rules. That's a violation of control. They're not protecting fairness. They're protecting territory. The rulebook isn't broken. It just wasn't written for people like Teddy. And the message was clear. It's fine to get rich. Just don't care too much while doing it. Teddy Bridgewater didn't just rebuild a football team, he disrupted a power structure. And that's when the knives came out. Behind the scenes, jealousy started to boil. Not from the kids, not from the community, from the people who had been sitting in comfortable chairs, playing politics while the program fell apart. See, Teddy didn't ask for permission. He didn't play the slow game. He walked in, rolled up his sleeves, and produced results they couldn't ignore and couldn't control. That made him dangerous. Rival coaches started whispering. Accusations floated, none with proof, all with intent. He's recruiting out of district. He's buying players' cars. Rumors with no receipts. But in the fragile world of school board politics, whispers don't need evidence. They just need volume. Teddy had outworked them, outcoached them, and worst of all, outshined them. In one season, he exposed everything they hadn't done for years. And when someone like that walks into your space and wins without playing your game, the old guard panics. So they weaponized the rulebook, not to uphold integrity, but to maintain control. This wasn't about Ubers or field paint. This was about sending a message. You don't skip the line. You don't disrupt the order. And you definitely don't do it as a former NFL player who looks like the kids you're trying to help. Because when systems feel threatened, they don't fight fair. They fight to silence. Teddy Bridgewater didn't break the rules. He broke the mold. And that's what really scared them. He wasn't just a coach. He was proof that you don't need politics, permission, or paychecks from corporate donors to create real change. Back into the neighborhood he came from and built something powerful without them. And in systems built on control, that's unforgivable. Because here's the truth. It's not the Uber rides that got Teddy suspended. It's the independence, the self-reliance, the fact that he uplifted kids with no handouts, no bureaucracy, and no yes sir to the gatekeepers who usually control the pipeline. That's the real threat. When a black man from the community walks in with NFL experience, local love, and zero need for validation, the system doesn't celebrate him. It circles the wagons because he exposes what they failed to do for years: care. Teddy didn't come in to play it safe. He came in to win. But more importantly, he came in to give, to feed hungry kids, to heal broken bodies, to show up for forgotten souls. And that level of compassion, that's not something you can coach against. That's something you try to shut down fast. This wasn't about maintaining rules. It was about maintaining control. Because Teddy didn't just lead a team. He redefined what leadership looks like. And for some people in power, that was the real problem. They took Teddy Bridgewater off the sidelines, but they didn't stop the movement he started. This was never about rule violations. It wasn't about Uber rides or field paint. It was about a man who did too much for kids who had too little. And that made people uncomfortable. Because when someone starts fixing a broken system without asking for help, the ones who benefit from that brokenness start to panic. But what they forgot is this: legacy doesn't need a title. Impact doesn't need a whistle. Teddy didn't just coach football. He restored faith in a school, in a neighborhood, in young men who were one injury, one missed practice, or one bad break away from being written off. He gave them something bigger than a playbook. He gave them belief, not in fairy tales, in themselves. So when the system moved to silence him, all it really did was amplify his voice. The story of Teddy Bridgewater isn't just echoing through South Florida, it's spreading everywhere. Because people recognize truth when they see it. They feel love when it's real. And what Teddy gave was real. You can suspend a coach, you can bury a headline, you can shuffle paperwork and hide behind technicalities, but you can't suspend heart. You can't suspend integrity. And you damn sure can't suspend legacy. Teddy Bridgewater may be off the field, but his impact, it's just getting started.